Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode 150 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today, I'm excited to talk to two parents again. So today I have Dani's mom and stepdad, Donna and Jeff. Donna and Jeff are doing simply amazing work in the area of suicide prevention and just help with mental health in general. So I know that so many people are going to benefit from their organization, which they call 33 Forever. As you can probably guess, their daughter Danielle died at the age of 33. She was an amazing, remarkable young woman, and I know you will enjoy hearing about her, and you will really appreciate all the amazing work her parents are doing in her memory now. Thank you so much to my two guests today. I have Donna and Jeff joining me. So thank you.
You are welcome. We're so glad to be here and to finally meet you face to face.
We are excited to meet you.
Oh, I'm very excited to have you on because you're doing some pretty exciting things, but I don't want to start with that. I just want to start with having you talk about your daughter, Danielle, or Dani.
Yeah, either way, we can call her that. Dani, she's had a wonderful 33 years of life.
Mm-hmm.
Probably did more in her 33 years than a lot of people did, which looking back, we're very grateful. She was never married. She is probably one of the most gorgeous women you'd ever meet. Started as a baby. People would stop me because she was so pretty with these gorgeous black hair. And was just, the absolute picture perfect child.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff and I are blended. So we got together, we started dating in 1999, and we've been married over 20 years now. But prior to that, our older daughters, Dani and his daughter, Sarah, were swimming. And they did swim all year round. So Dani had the biggest crush on Jeff. It is so weird. And I knew him as a swim dad. That's it. We never socialized together. Sometimes I'd carpool, sometimes he would, or his wife, or my ex-husband. But she loved when Mr. Heck was driving.
Yeah, and we had, Dani and I had a really good relationship, and we really started when she was 8 and 9 years old. With the kids riding in the back, a bunch of girls riding in the back of my car, coming home from swim practice. And so I got to know her then. And then, those two girls, sometimes depending on whether they were annoyed whether we were together or happy we were together, they either took credit or gave blame to themselves for putting us together eventually. So we ended up, Dani was in her mid-teens when I first really came into her life as a kind of a father figure.
Okay.
Well, before that, I just want to tell one story. I was thinking, what story? This is probably the best story. Dani was 11 and Sarah was 10, and they went off to swim camp together, and it was a week-long swim camp. And we carpooled again. One of the parents drove, and then I went to pick up my daughter, and he went to pick up Sarah. And the day before, I got a phone call from Dani, and she goes, "Mom, when you pick us up, you need to pretend you're married to Sarah's dad because we told everybody we're sisters." And I'm like, "Are you crazy?" And
Sarah, I got the same call from mine, and she said, "Yeah, we've been telling everybody we're stepsisters all week, and so you guys have to act like you're married when you come to get us." And I was, "That's not happening."
No.
I still blush thinking of it. I'm like, my gosh, we were happily married. Life was going on. We had never foreseen anything going on in our worlds. And they just point blank said that. So we kind of like, I've said, it's Dani, it's not your daughter. And he goes, no, it's Sarah. So as years went on and we got together, we realized the two of them just could fabricate anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did was went down there, did nothing. And I probably didn't even talk to him, thinking like, this is weird.
Yeah, right.
Years later, Sarah goes off to college, meets a friend that she said that she was in swim camp with. And she's
that
like,
same swim camp.
Yeah, Sarah, how's your sister Dani? And she's like, oh, she's good. And she goes, oh my gosh, she is my sister now. So that was really very, so they, again, like Jeff said, they took the credit for us getting together.
Oh, that is so funny. And I can't believe that all those kids for all those years thought that, and then it really ended up being true later on.
And it's small town America for anybody listening, so it's not,
they were rotten. So
Yes.
that's rotten, preteens. They're funny, but
Yeah.
they love that story too. But yeah, Dani and I were very, very close. We had a great relationship. We always did. And, I always say with all of Donna's kids, but especially Dani, I didn't make them, but they're my kids. And they have a dad, but they all lived in our house. They all grew up in our house together, all 6 of our kids. And we didn't really use the term step. That wasn't really part of our vocabulary. They didn't use that either. And so we were just one big Brady Bunch kind of family, actually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So again, and then as years went on, we all just blended. Dani was pretty much the ringleader of, it was my oldest son, Josh, and then we had the 5 girls underneath. So Dani is the oldest girl, and once she came into herself, she was an incredible leader and took care of everybody, very generous, was the peacemaker, and an incredible daughter. And she became, after the turbulent years of 15 through 22, maybe, she truly became my best friend. So losing her was not only losing my daughter and the child all I wanted in life was to have a daughter, and son was perfect. But then when I finally got my daughter, I was like, oh my goodness, everything's complete. And then blessed with more and more.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, it was just like, I felt like I was a friend losing a best friend, as well as a mom losing a child.
Yeah, that's really hard. Mm-hmm.
So
no question.
Dani had some struggles in her teens. That's really kind of when it began. She had a suicide attempt at 15 years old, which was really our first introduction to the mental health world. We were not equipped or aware really of how that all would work and those kinds of things. And so it was kind of a shock. We got a kind of tough phone call in the middle of the night where I got a call. Actually, we weren't married yet. And I got a call from a mom who had picked Dani up with her daughter because Dani had called her friend and told her what had happened, and they were on their way to the hospital. So then I got to call Donna at her house and say, hey, we got to get to the hospital. Dani's in the emergency room, and this is what's happened. So she had some treatment. We got her care and treatment then, and began the journey of dealing with mental health and the mental health system. And just we thought it was kind of teenage angst, the normal 15-year-old girl stuff, and but it was obviously more than that. And kind of a wake-up call, I think, to our whole family. But and then she struggled really into her early 20s, and at 22 had a very, very serious second attempt that she almost didn't come back from. But was living and working professionally and having a lot of success, but also having a lot of struggles. As beautiful as Danielle was, and she really was a knockout as far as her physical being. She's a beautiful young lady inside too, but she always had body image issues, and she struggled with that. And she had depression and anxiety and some PTSD from some experiences she'd had as a young person. And so she struggled, and she had that very serious attempt. And then she knew at that point she needed some serious help. And so we got her some really good aftercare. Again, a difficult struggle with the mental health system, but we navigated it and found some help for her. And really the next 10 years, she really blossomed and came into her own and had tremendous success in business and financially and in every kind of way the outside world would look at success. She just had it all, it seemed to.
Yeah. So as Jeff said, the mental health road we went down was truly happenstance because we had no idea. We had never known anybody in either of our families that had attempted to take their life. And again, at 15, I just thought she was just a young lady trying to get attention. But the what we learned through that is she had very low self-image, but Dan lived her life to help other people. We would joke that she would find misfits on the street and bring them home to fix them. And it's so true. We once had this young man, I don't know, maybe he was 19, never met him. She heard it was a friend of a friend. He was at a bus station and he came home to our house and she's like, Mom, he has to stay here. He's got no one. He's got no parents. He's got no family, just for a night. And we're married, thank God, because I'm like, this young man could do anything, but she was
at all.
I mean, we helped and she just did that over and over in different aspects. That was the only one she literally brought home and slept here, who we didn't know, but she had a heart to help people who were struggling with something. It didn't matter. And that was her go-to. And her career was that.
Yeah. She worked in the drug and alcohol rehabilitation industry, in professional life. And she had a very tragic loss where she lost a boyfriend very suddenly 2011. And then after she was able to manage to get through that as best she could, she went back to Florida where she had been living. And she started with a brand new startup company. She was the 6th employee of that company. And 7 years later, when she left, she had ownership in the company and she was managing 250 of the 350 employees and just tremendously successful. And she ran book clubs and leadership councils and was really working to try to help people be the best version of themselves. And that was really what she had become and was really all about and trying to do. And again, don't get me wrong, Dani was tough too. She could kick you in the tail and tell you she was kicking you, but she also would love you after she kicked you. So she had some tough love in her, but she was very effective at being a leader that way, and people were just naturally drawn to her. And so that story of the young man coming over, I mean, that's not a unique story for her because she was constantly trying to help people overcome whatever struggles they were trying to overcome, including the same kind of struggles that she had with mental health and struggles of being a young woman in today's day and age.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me to hear you talk about her in that aspect of her being this beautiful, successful, financially successful individual. So from the outside, it would look like she had everything together. Yes. And in some ways, I think that can be really difficult for people. I think about girls that I take care of myself as a pediatrician. And, you get these beautiful young women that come in that everyone thinks, oh, you're so lucky. Yes. You have all this happening. And that you are in this great family and you have a nice house and you have the looks and you have all of this. And it can be very hard, when you're that individual because other people don't maybe treat you in a way that you should be in some ways, right? Because they don't know what's going on in your head and in your heart, and that you actually don't have that confidence that it looks from the outside like you should have.
Well, and exactly those types of people, they put this mask on and then they begin wearing it their whole life because they can't let you know that they're down. They can't let you know that they're struggling. They can't let you know that, for Dani, that she feels fat or that she's not eating or that she's, that there's any trouble. She's like, I don't want to be a burden to anybody, Mom. So she would literally keep everything inside. And every time that, when she had tried to take her life, it was a perfect day per se. I mean, nothing looked out of the ordinary. But inside, she had a lot that she was battling and didn't know how to deal with it. And at 22, she did finally get the tools to cope with everything. But you prepare a safety plan. If you feel like you want to harm yourself, what are you going to do? I'm going to call this person. I'm going to read this. I'm going to go for a walk. You go through it all, and she did it over and over and over. And I think 11 years later, when we lost her, that safety plan was never a thought for any of us. We thought she was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of things that I talk about all the time is Dani was one of those people who was a go-to for so many people that sometimes her bucket of her own resilience got empty.
Yeah.
And there wasn't enough for her sometimes. And I think that was a problem. And that mascot it talks about, Dani was really good at it. She could wear it and everything looked good on the outside. And then, you know, I use this analogy all the time. So many people, and Danielle was one of them, is like you're like a duck on the calm pond where you look, everything looks beautiful and regal on top of the water, but underneath your feet are just paddling like mad just to try to keep up. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, especially in this day and age. And you as a pediatrician, I know see this, you have to, where, you know, the social media and the way that we all look at each other in these false and not really accurate ways, you know, make a lot of additional struggle for people, not just young people, especially young people, but really everybody, anybody.
Yeah. Yep. I talk about that to the kids a lot, that, you know, what they see on Snapchat and Instagram is not real life. It's not real. So all of those things, you take like 15 pictures until you get the one that you think looks perfect.
Yes.
And that's the one that you post. No one posts pictures of themselves when they roll out of bed in their pajamas. I mean, that's what real life is. And so then these kids get this false sense of what's real when they look on social media, because what's on social media isn't real.
Yep. And they feel like they're not enough. I mean, you're matching yourself up to, again, what you said, nothing is real. So whatever that next level is not enough. So so that's where all the damage comes in, and parents have to do damage control, or as in the situation with Dani, it was good. And then she dropped because of whatever circumstances.
And, you know, it's interesting. I think about her. I hadn't even thought about this for a while, but she was completely out of the social media loop. She took herself off
for 2 to 3
for a long time. And I think we never really had this conversation, maybe you did with her, but you know, I think she knew that it was not real life. And you know, you can't measure up to that sometimes. And she had an amazing life. You said it already. At the time we lost her, she was living in Washington, D.C. in a beautiful townhome on Capitol Hill. She was driving a beautiful vehicle, an incredible vehicle. She had everything you can imagine, the shoe collection, the purses, the all of the stuff. She had probably 100 pair of designer sunglasses. She was making a ton of money. Just, you know, that wasn't even an issue. Yet in there someplace, there was still that duck on the pond problem where it didn't matter how good things looked on the outside, she still struggled. And we always say, you know, the perfect storm kind of hit the night that we lost her, because there was nothing in her life that individually should have taken her to that deep, deep, dark place. But a combination of a few things just obviously did.
And I like how you mentioned earlier about how sometimes when you give and give and give, it can suck so much out of you that you don't have that resilience anymore. And just even to say myself, obviously, I'm a grieving mom and I'm going through a lot. And then, you know, I'm caring for kids as a pediatrician. And in general, I have cared for a lot of teens with mental illness for two reasons. One, because I'm of an age where a lot of my patients are teenagers. But secondly, because I think I understand pain and suffering in a way a lot of my colleagues don't. And so then these kids and families end up feeling drawn to see me. And so then we have a mental health care coordinator, and they have somebody who's in crisis and in a bad place, and they can't get them in with their primary doctor. And so they think, oh, you should go see Dr. Larson. But I actually had to have a conversation with her probably 6-8 months ago. And I said, you can't do that anymore. Like, I am really struggling here. And I have, 800 of my own patients to take care of.
My goodness.
And I am happy to do that. But when now it's, I've got this suicidal teen and this one with very bad anxiety, and I can't be that for everyone, because I feel like in some ways I'm barely hanging on, right? Because inwardly you can give and give and give, but then you need to take time to try to refill yourself, or you can just run out. And so anyway, I thought that was a good point that you brought up earlier, because I think with Dani, she had a love for trying to help other people, but yet was she trying to take that time to fill herself as well? I mean, I know that's something I'm personally working on right now, because I feel like I've done a really bad job of it lately.
We understand that feeling too, because of all this stuff that we do, and we end up being the go-to for a lot of folks too, who are struggling, and we try to help every time we can, but it does, it saps you. It does. I mean, just to be honest, it does. There's no way around it.
You know, I wonder, I've often thought of this and never actually verbalized it to you, but Dani lost her love of her life in 2011. She was able to sustain herself somehow, some way. I mean, for 6 months, she was basically in our home in the fetal position, only taking care of her dogs, because she was so beyond devastated. So then 7 months later, she moves to Florida and goes back to Florida, and anyhow starts her new career. So she's pouring herself into everybody. From that moment on, she never, ever stopped. And I think of me on some days where I can't do it anymore. And it's only been 3.5 years. But I mean, at that night, I know when she had texted her friend and said, I'm done, I just can't anymore. And I think that could have been part of it too. She just had so much in her life that, she just didn't want to see tomorrow.
Well, and I will share this with the audience, because you wrote to me last week, I think, just about our upcoming interview. And you asked me, do you take any time off? And you're the first person who has asked me that in the now almost 3 years that I've been doing this. The first person that asked me, do you take any time off? And it actually got me thinking, you know what? I really need to. And so I think the same day you wrote me that email, I wrote to my editor and I said, I think I want to get a few weeks ahead. What do you think about? Do you think it would be possible for you to get me several episodes ahead? Because I always record them quite a bit ahead, but they come back more gradually. I said, because I think I need a little bit of time off, and I want to try to do a few ahead so that I can take a little bit of time for myself. So I thank you for that. And I think we all need to do that. And it's gotten me thinking a little bit more about that idea of self-care and how we take care of ourselves, and how you can't be the person that you want to be for others if you can't take care of yourself first. It goes back to when you're on an airplane, what do they tell you? You have to put on your own oxygen mask before helping the person beside you, because if you don't put your own on, you're not going to be able to help anybody else. So
that's a good analogy. I like that one too. Yeah. Dani was and you can see where Dani got her caring about other people. She got it from this beautiful lady right next to me.
I think so. Yeah, for sure.
For sure. I mean, because they both have that thing, and that's what Dani did. That's why Dani was the one. She was like the light that the moths were drawn to. She just always was. And she also worked on herself. I mean, she worked on her self-care that last decade of her life. She knew she needed medicine sometimes, and she took it. And she knew she needed talk therapy and psychiatric care, and she did it. And she knew she needed self-care and mindfulness and yoga and those kinds of things, and she did it. But she would also get her bucket emptied, and when her bucket was empty, that was when she was at risk, I think.
Yeah,
right.
And eventually I think that's what got her. The bucket was empty.
Yeah.
But Marcy, you even said about self-care. It took me, after I lost Dani, I became very close with the psychiatrist that was treating Dani. After HIPAA and all the executor, Jeff was Dani's executor. After everything went through, we talked, and there's so many things that, Dani was just trying to better herself. Her doctor had said it had been so many years since she had found somebody so interested in doing whatever they can to get over their past and to be a better person and to just dig deep and find out what was going on. And so she did not expect it. But in turn, after I was, devastated, and if I had an issue, I would text her, and she's like, are you doing self-care? And I'm like, well, yeah, I did my nails. And she's like, no, 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 no. That's, that's nice, but you probably have always done your nails. And I'm like, well, yeah, because, I work and talk with my hands. She goes, you just have to find something that'll fill you. And you remember nothing fills you at the early day.
Right.
Nothing. So I'm getting better at that, trying to, give us a few extra days during a week where we can just kind of be and not keep giving out. But I think that's probably a struggle for everyone who has lost somebody.
Yeah, I think you're right. Why don't you tell us about the project that you've been doing and all the work you've been done, because it's pretty amazing.
Well, before we talk about what we started, Dani died in February of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving and Christmas of 2018, Dani had come home, both of those for about 3 or 4 days for Thanksgiving and 3 or 4 for Christmas. And Jeff is an attorney, and her goal in life was to start some consulting. And she wanted to help people, primarily young girls, who were struggling with either their weight, mental health struggles, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. She had gone to a conference a couple of years prior. It was actually an Oprah conference, and it literally changed her overnight.
Lit her up. She loved it.
Really?
Yeah, she was very close. I don't know if she met her or not, but I mean, they had real close seats. And she's like, Mom, do you know 14-year-old girls are trying to take their life? And what is wrong with that? And it's going younger and younger. And she just decided that she could share her story with thousands of people on stage, but she was always afraid to talk about it with her friends or family. So they started getting bullet points together on what she could do. Her and Jeff had taken a public speaking class, mostly did it for her.
And a coaching class.
Mm-hmm. So she could better her, her future. And things were just in place. So that's what she wanted to do, the very end. That's all we were thinking of. So
we were literally at Christmas time. She died in February at Christmas time, the previous Christmas. She and I were sitting down talking very specifics about business plan and how do you turn this into an income stream so you can she was doing very well vocationally still. She was running 2 different companies for an entrepreneur and doing amazingly well, but at the same and lots of stress, but at the same time, she had ideas that she wanted to consult for him. She really wanted to do some of her own stuff, and this was really what her goal and her idea was. So when she died, and then in February, our family got together very, very quickly thereafter. I mean, literally within days. And we sort of decided that we couldn't let her suicide be the end of her story. And we couldn't let that be the legacy, because she had more that she wanted to do and just didn't get a chance to do it. So we kind of tried to pick up the mantle, maybe not exactly what she was going to do, but the same kind of idea. And at 33 Forever, a nonprofit organization that we started, we literally got the paperwork for within a week for dying, and a lawyer friend of mine put it together, and we were on Facebook within 9 days of her death, and we raised $30,000 in the first month after her death, and we've just gone great guns since, because of the generosity of first friends and family, but now just a whole community that's been drawn by Dani's story and kind of that legacy that she's left.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I mean, what you had talked about being a physician, kids can come to you, or the parents can, because you're safe. You've been through something very serious and tragic, and you've got more empathy than others. And that's how people are with us, that, so many messages and emails and people reaching out started with people we knew, and then people from, all over, literally in other countries, have reached out. And at first we were like, oh my gosh, they're talking, are you safe? Are you, do you have any weapons in the house? We go through all the things that in theory a doctor should go through. And we're like, we are not professionals. So immediately we'd get them to, like, we'd Google, I'm in their towns, where, NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we'd recommend that. But so we had all kinds of things going on, but the point of that is that they felt safe talking to us. And then let's give money so it doesn't happen to me. Or, I did that with a lot of organizations when my girls were little. There was an organization I I treasured. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give because God's going to look at this and say, okay, we're going to keep that one away from you, that tragedy or whatever. So if that's part of it, but people they just needed something and someone. So eventually we ended up creating a professional advisory committee filled with doctors, psychiatrists, a couple clinicians,
Psychologist.
Yep. And one of Dani's very best friends, who is a psychologist at Ohio State University, she's on our board. They were best friends growing up. And it's as though Danielle is getting all these people in our life to help with 33 Forever to create something that she would be proud of.
So really what we've tried to do is we kind of have 5 things that we focus on as an organization. I'll just buzz them off here real quick. But the one Donna already talked about is the resources. We want to try to be a resource clearinghouse, if you want to look at it that way, for people struggling with, especially depression, anxiety, mental health struggles. But we've really expanded to be able to cover the whole behavioral health waterfront. So drug and alcohol problems and substance use disorder and even schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and some of the other things. Danielle didn't have those particular conditions, but the mental health world is very broad. So we try to be a resource for clearinghouse for resources, and we try to get people to other places because, again, we're not the pros. We try to get them out of our hands as quickly as we can, but get them to the right treatment places, to the right sources, to the right contacts, to the right communications, to the right organizations, or just information. And then we run educational programs in middle schools and high schools and college levels for faculty and for students. We are doing that in conjunction with some people, and then we run some of our own. We support some other organizations. We do advocacy both on the state level here in Ohio and on the national level at some level. We're working on that. So our idea, Dani lived in DC, and our idea is one day to be on Capitol Hill talking about Dani's story. And then we also do community awareness and a lot of community awareness events and information and sort of getting the word out and being a voice of mental health and suicide prevention. And then we want to support research where we have a good research program that we have nearby, again at Ohio State, that is doing tremendous work in suicide prevention research, really on the cutting edge. And so we're hoping to be able to help financially support them too. So we have all kinds of partnerships and things we've been able to develop in the 3 years. That's a long-winded answer to your question.
No, I love it though. I love it. That is a lot. That's tremendous. Yeah. Tremendous.
And it's not just us. I mean, we have a board and we've got all kinds of great volunteers who are helping us put that together too. We were talking before we got on this call about the challenges of social media. I know you know those challenges, and we do too. So we have a pretty good social media presence. We have about 10,000 followers at this point between Instagram and Facebook. So that's a nice way to get the word out to people too.
That is a really nice way to get the word out if you can. It's funny because we talked about sort of the evils of social media in some ways, but in other ways, it can be a way that people are brought together. I mean, I know there are a very large bereaved parent community, and that's on Facebook that I'm part of several different organizations for that. And it can really make you feel much, much less alone. So as much as you can have negative connotations from social media can be tremendously supportive to make you not feel as alone too.
That's good and bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is good and bad for sure.
Another thing that I was thinking, with Dani's whole dream, we ended up going this route because of how hard it was for us to navigate the mental health system.
Yeah.
At 15, it was fortunately someone in our town worked with NAMI, and we knew her. And again, NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and she gave us direction on where to, take Dani to which hospital, had a great children's program. And then at 22, she is let go in our care. Fortunately, as Jeff always says, that she wanted to get help because she could have just walked out, gone back to the life that she was in, back to the same people, and the problems never would have been solved because they just keep you in there in the hospital until they feel like you're safe. And then they dismiss you to, well, I don't know, there's other places out there.
I mean, it was scary. We were at a very large level 1 trauma center where she was hospitalized for a few days after that attempt, after she got medically stable. And then psychiatrically, she was just in their psychiatric unit for a few days. And then they're like, she doesn't really need to be here. We're going to let her out. And we're like, well, okay, well, what's your suggestion? Where do we take her? What do we do? They're like, well, we really don't have any suggestions for you. So we had to figure it out on our complete own, trying to figure out how to pay for it, trying to figure out how to get it covered by insurance, trying to find someplace, number one, safe, secure, that would help her finally get down to the brass tacks on addressing her issues. And again, as Donna said, fortunately, she was open to that. She knew she needed the help, and she allowed us to help her.
Yeah. I feel like you are talking to me and like, this is my life now.
Yes.
This is trying to find help for people is so hard, especially now with this pandemic.
Yes.
The struggles that it takes to find a therapist that's accepting new patients or a psychiatrist is so difficult.
It is.
I mean, I had a patient not too long ago that had very serious suicide attempt that was in an ICU, and very much so. And they're like, okay, so you can just manage her medication now. Like, what?
Yeah,
and so we said, no, we really would like to do a follow-up appointment with psychiatrist. And they're like, oh, okay. And the appointment was made for September. So still between May and September, it still fell on me because there's nowhere else that we could get an appointment prior to September. And this puts a lot on just these general practitioners. I mean, like, I'm in general pediatrics. I had a month of psychiatry training.
Right.
In fact, and I think a week of it, I had a vacation. So I had like 3 weeks that I'm supposed to know all of this. So you end up having to learn it on your own because there just aren't enough people. And you know what I mean? It's so I feel for you. And then I also feel for her general pediatrician, or family practice doc, or someone who was stuck there too, trying to be like, oh, I guess it's me now trying to do this too.
Well, one of the horribles of that last story we told you is when Donna called her psychiatrist in that town where she was living at the time, where she attempted and was getting out of the level 1 trauma center. The psychiatrist said, well, she broke my trust by attempting. She promised she wouldn't attempt. And she broke my trust, so I'm discharging her as a patient. So we had no help, none.
Oh,
it was almost criminal to us. I'm looking at her thinking, God, she's alive. And I'm thinking, and this is the woman that is supposed to have helped her and been her anchor. So one thing that when we started 30,
there are a lot of gaps in this system, and that's
there are a lot of gaps.
Trying to help with too.
Yeah, when we started, we had our board meeting, and one of the board members said to me, she said, "Okay, as Dani's mom, what do you see 33 doing, or where do you want to go with it?" And literally, we had nothing at that time, just a group of people, a Facebook page, maybe a little bit of money might have started trickling in. And that happened after her celebration. But I said, I want to have a place somewhere called Dani's Place where someone can go after they're discharged from the psychiatric unit to get their meds stabilized, get that, counseling that they need so that they're safe before, again, they go back into their environment, or guide them to go to a new environment. If we had that with Dani at the time, it would have taken everything off our plate with the panic. And then we'd have had maybe a month or whatever to look. But as Jeff always talks about, rehab.
Yeah, we aftercare is a huge gap in the system, so many places. And we found her aftercare, but it was a struggle, and it was out of state, and it was outrageously expensive, and it was very inaccessible.
Which not everyone can afford at all.
Exactly.
No, and so, the whole that's a whole nother topic. But honestly, you
go into debt for it. People we know have gone into bankruptcy because you do anything to help your child.
Save your family member. That's what you're trying to do, literally.
Well, and not too long ago, I just had someone on the podcast who lost her sister to suicide, and unbeknownst to the family, she had stopped all of her counseling and all of her things because it was too expensive.
money.
It was too expensive, so she stopped.
So
And then she died by suicide. I mean,
you know,
that's just tragic.
It is. That's
it's
so
beyond. And that, if you have a hip replacement, or you have a knee replacement, or you have a heart attack, or you have all these other kind of medical conditions, we have rehab centers where you can go and get yourself well enough to return to your home and your life. And we don't do, there are places, we don't
Yeah,
do
there are some, but
systemically with mental health in the same way. And not just suicide, but all kinds of serious mental health disorders where we just don't have that aftercare.
Well, and I just hate the fact that on the back of your insurance card, you have a separate number for mental health.
Yes, that's
wrong. That is wrong. It should not be a separate number. It's putting it into a completely different category that you feel like, or that then the patient can feel like, well, this is something that's like a little extra, a little different, not really with my medical stuff. Like, I should be able to handle this myself. But if you really need to call the mental health number, you can.
And
like, that's
talk about stigma. That's it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that is a huge thing. I mean, I've often looked at that and thought that, but you just put it into words.
There's supposed to be federal law that helps with that, the parity law that passed a number of years ago. And in practice, it's on the books. And in the way it works, it's not very good still. We still have a long way to go. And, the last time I checked, doctor, the brain is part of the body, isn't it?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
it is the same. So shouldn't be treated differently.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
So can you talk now about the television show that you do too? Because that's kind of cool. I want to hear about this.
Oh, it is kind of cool. It's and I say that tongue in cheek because, here we are again in small town Ohio and trying to help people. And my husband does advertising with TV advertising and radio advertising with the local TV station. And they just started talking about, we were trying to promote one of the events we had because we have two major events through the year.
PSAs.
And he said, in passing, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a TV show that could just have mental health people on it and talk about, have the professionals or stories? And she's like, yeah, that'd be cool. Half an hour later, she just, oh my gosh, not only would be that cool, I'm going to set it up and blah. And she went on. And a week later,
we're meeting with the vice president of the TV station and he looked at us and he said, we're going to do this show. And not only we're going to do this show, you two are going to host it, and we're starting in 2 weeks. And we went, whoa. We were not talking about us. That wasn't really my idea.
Exactly.
So we didn't start in 2 weeks, but we did start in about 5. And we have done between 50 and 60 episodes in the last year plus. And as far as we know, it's the only show of its kind that we've been able to locate in the country. And even though we're on a local independent TV station, it's not closed cable, it's not access cable or anything like that, but it's an independent station here in Mansfield, Ohio. Taken that idea and we've turned it into a half-hour talk show where we have people just come and tell us about the resource they may have for people in behavioral health world, or telling their stories about their own struggles or their own family struggles, or all kinds of different stories in that world. And we have learned so much, and I hope our audience who watches it has too. And the good thing about it is it's not just a weekly half-hour show. They saved those shows, so we were able to keep all of them, and we have links on our website. But then also we're slowly converting them over to YouTube. So we've got about 60 in the can now. So it's exciting, and we've gotten a lot of nice feedback about it. And again, I think pretty unique thing in the world.
Well, what we're trying to do, Marcy, is create hope for people.
Right.
We will never end an episode without something positive because, I've had the Pollyanna syndrome forever, and I had it right after Dani died. All things work together for good. Not always.
Right.
At least, I don't know what the silver lining is, and I'm going to have to wait till maybe we've helped people. But to me, I want my daughter back.
Right.
In the meantime, so we have always decided that no matter what is going on in mental health or depression or suicide, it's not a fun subject. people don't say, "Oh, yay, it's Monday. We're going to go watch that Suicide Show," or whatever. So,
like the Thursday Grief podcast. Same thing, really.
Let's talk about schizophrenia. That's a fun topic. Let's cover that today.
But we really do.
Mine is like, oh, we get to hear from somebody else whose child died. My family actually will sort of chuckle now because I get pictures sent for every week. You know, I have pictures on my website of all the kids. And so I will sometimes get the pictures of these cutest kids, and I'll show my family like, oh, isn't she adorable? And little pink balloons and all that. And like, yeah, but she's dead. I mean, every time I show someone a picture of a really super adorable child, there's a tragic, horrible story with it. So, yeah, I'm kind of not the person maybe you want to have at the party to bring everybody up, right?
But you know what we do?
We know that feeling too.
You do, in the sense that nobody feels alone when they're listening to your podcast. And,
right.
And that's a hope and a help, because a friend of mine, she lost her son tragically to a medical issue 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Beyond devastated. And she was calling me, how can you do this? I can't breathe. And at the beginning is the most horrible time. And I found a couple of podcasts of yours that I sent her, and she was so thrilled because it gave her hope that she wasn't the only one. She's not the only one that was maybe mad at God for a little bit, or the only one that thought, why is it my child and not yours? And, all the feelings that we have. So knowing that we're not alone.
And then she wrote to me after just listening to a few. And then you wrote to me. And you mentioned your friend, and I wrote back, yes, she just wrote to me. I just read that email a little bit.
And,
no, I know you didn't. But I could tell, like, oh, yeah, because she said, my friend sent me this. And then she said, my friend lost. And I thought, this is the same exact story.
Yes.
So,
yes. That's really neat that you read all your emails. That's really
yeah, of course I do. Of course. I just feel privileged, really, to be able to hear different stories.
We're that way too. It never fails when we speak or we do some sort of a program or something. People come up afterwards and they're waiting for us, and they'll wait. If we're talking to other people, and they want to come up and they want to tell us their story because again, just like you, Marcy, you and your husband have been through the worst imaginable thing. I hope the worst thing ever. And they want to share their story too, because we're safe. We get it. Unfortunately, we get it. And we can, we know there are no words that make it better, but we just know, that look we can share says a lot. And you understand that too. And that's what's wonderful about what you're doing and your podcast series too, because you're, as Donna said, you're providing that help and that hope and letting people know that, the fact that my brain's telling me I'm losing it right now is normal. Yes. It's abnormally normal, but it's normal for where you are living right now.
Right. To make people not feel alone and so isolated, because grief is just an isolating kind of experience, for sure. No matter how you experience the loss, it's just so isolating. So to be able to let people know that they're not alone is just remarkable, really. I mean, I think back to my own experience of just going to that first support group, although, I mean, I was dragged there, right? I didn't want to be there. I wanted to run. I wanted to flee because you feel like I don't want to belong in this group.
Absolutely.
I don't want to be in this group of bereaved parents, but I am. And since I am, and I can't change things, as you said earlier, Donna, since you can't change things, then you do make the best of what you have, and trying to be with as many people and give as much support as you can, and just be not alone.
Well, and then you keep Andy's memory alive. We keep Dani's alive, and it does something to heal us when we actually had a doctor tell us, when you can share your story with someone else, healing has begun. And we're like, that's probably true. And not a one-on-one, but when we finally were able to just talk about it and not just feel like I was going to vomit.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that is what it is at first, for sure.
It is.
And then you go out in public and you see people that give you the look and I don't know if the look was the worst thing. I had probably 6 months. I went nowhere in this town because I couldn't face people and I was afraid I would lose it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I hated that.
Yeah.
I hated the look.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was getting it everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know that I was, and I don't know that was happening. We were on every TV station, and there was a picture of me on every TV station around because, it was a big story. I mean, he was a chorister, a head chorister. He looked cute. He had a beautiful voice. I'm a pediatrician. I mean, we're just, it was through no fault of our own. We were just hit suddenly. I mean, it made for good television.
Yep.
And that was hard because you felt like everywhere I went, people were noticing that. Yes. And I do know even now, like we are in a huge hospital system and I go in to round, and it used to be before Andy died, not everyone would know my name. After Andy died, everyone knows my name. They all know that, oh, that's Dr. Larson. Yes. That's the one whose son died, right? I mean, they all know that now. So I've gotten so I can accept it a little more. But at the beginning, you just feel like you're just on display. Exactly. All of your emotions, and everyone's looking at you and seeing how are you going to act and what are you going to be. And
right.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot cry in public. It's very rare that I'll get choked up. It's been like that for my entire life. Like if I got upset with something, even the kids, I would go in my room and I'd cry. I'd have my little cry closet. You'd find me in the closet. When my mom passed away, it was tragic. She was sick with ovarian cancer, and it was just a very long, slow, horrible process. But funeral, I didn't cry, but he'd find me collapsed on the floor one day, just out of the blue when it would hit me. But with that, with me not crying, I again felt, and I'm okay with it now, but people would be, oh, she says it's her best friend. Why doesn't she seem that upset?
Yep.
Like, well, I got a good mask too, I guess. I mean, that's what we had to wear.
I think of the night that Andy died and we're in the ambulance and I'm sobbing and I'm trying to talk to people, and Eric at the beginning wasn't crying. And he said, I remember thinking to myself, what is wrong with me? Yeah. My son just died and I'm not crying. He thought there had to be something physically wrong with him that he wasn't doing that. Now, it ended up he did cry later, but it doesn't matter, right? I mean, it's just different people are different, and you can't judge yourself or try to let other people judge you based on what you look like on the outside. I mean, it goes back to Dani, right? You would have never guessed what was going on in the inside with what she was showing on the outside. No. So for bereaved people, for anyone to judge what's happening on the inside by what they're showing,
that's very true.
Not good.
We didn't even share this. 25 hours before Danielle died, our 6th grandchild was born. So Dani had a new niece that day. This little girl looked identical to Dani, and this is not her blood sister. We have both newborn pictures next to each other, and they look
remarkable.
Like twins.
Wow.
So Dani, her last actually FaceTime message, she called her sister who had just had the baby, and she had just gotten up and heard the news of that Emery was born, and is just saying, I can't wait to meet her. She's so beautiful and she looks like me. And Mandy, you finally gave me a baby that I can say is mine. And she's just happier than anything. And we are on top of the world. And within, 15 hours for her, because it was at 10 in the morning, she couldn't see tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, and we all went from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in that amount of time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And got the phone call at 3 something in the morning. And it was weird. The phone rang and I was texting Dani at 10 o'clock at night, asking her how she was doing. She was moving. She had just signed a lease that day for a new place. She was going to move closer to her girlfriends. Her boyfriend was coming in that week. And I said, Dan, you've been pretty quiet this week. Is everything okay? And she's like, I'm just got a lot going on, Mom. And she goes, and I quit smoking Christmas. That was another thing. I gained weight. You know how bad I feel when I feel like I'm fat. So I've got that. I've got to move. I've got the hiccup with my insurance. And she goes, but what did she say? But how's that for you right now? And I said, okay, honey. I'm like, it'll be okay. You can hang in there. And she said, well, I just don't want to burden anybody. And again, that word. And I said, I love you more than anything. Call me if you need me. And I know I wrote, all things work together for good. And I put ... And then she sent me a kissy face. That's at 10 in the morning, 10 in the evening. And at 3:30, we get the phone call from her best friend. I see it on her name on the phone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Jeff, this is it. And it was. We had a few hours scare because she had just moved away. That was another trigger for Danielle. She had her best friend work for her, and the owner of the company had asked her they were transitioning, so she had to let this girl go. And she had said, how can I let my best friend go? Now she doesn't have a job. It's Christmas, and what have I done to her? So she's taking all this on more and more.
Yeah.
So then this girl calls us. We had to wait for the call from the police to confirm it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was the moment in movies where I've heard it on your show where people say, you know, are you being mom? Yes, I am. I regret to inform you. And it was, and then I just went into silence. I didn't, you know, again, the same thing. I didn't scream. I was like,
yeah,
I knew it. It was a call that we wondered if we'd get. Like,
I mean,
again,
we literally, we shared with each other within that next day or so that we both had been dreading that phone call, not even speaking about
right.
it, dreading the phone call independently of each other, really since probably she was 15. And
yeah,
there it was.
Yeah. And there it finally was. Yeah.
But in turn, again, we are very excited about our 33 Forever and how,
yeah,
you know, we're just helping people. We've got a couple other really cool things that we have done through the help of all the generous people is we've raised quite a bit of money, but we started an endowment at Ohio State in Dani's name for their behavioral health immediate care clinic. So there's a room with her name on it, a picture there.
That's great.
Akron Children's Hospital here locally is doing something, and we're making the same thing, a big donation there. And that is the hospital that took care of her when she was 15. So now they're moving to our town, which is about an hour and a half away. And it's just like a whole full circle. And we just feel like Dani is just putting, again, these things in place.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That immediate care clinic, you know, we talked about the aftercare. That's almost like an urgent care center for mental health, which is a fairly new concept in the mental health world.
Yep.
They have it in Michigan now, don't they? I think they do.
Yes, I think so. And we have one locally that's just opened up in the last few months too. They won't take pediatric patients, but they do have it for adults.
So anyway, it's exciting because it's offering that, you know, we all understand that bump and bruise, and you know, if you break your arm, you got to go to the ER. But if you bruise it, or you need an antibiotic, or you need this, or you need that, you go to the urgent care and they take care of you. Well, there should be, you know, you bump or bruise your brain, you need a little help to get stable. You need to get it talked through.
Those are beautiful.
Meds adjusted, yes. They're wonderful. So that's Ohio State is committed tremendous resources to that too. So again, something we're proud to have our supporters support through our organizations.
Yes. That's excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing Dani with us, sharing Forever 33. I think it's, or 33 Forever? 33 Forever. I'm sorry, misspoke there, but.
Everybody does it. And you know what? I wanted to name it Forever 33. And my one daughter, she's the youngest, total grief. She hardly had talked at all. She looked up at me and she goes, "Really, Mom? You're going to get sued by Forever 21 if you do that." And I'm like, oh, okay.
And then she looked at me and I said, yeah, probably. Right.
And then she goes, 33 Forever. And I immediately got covered in goosebumps, from head to toe. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's it. And everyone's like, yeah, that's it. And I now call them Dani bumps. And whenever something's going on and I wonder if or what, I'll get my Dani bumps and like, yep, that's what we need to do. So it's
well, I think I just got some too. So she spread them this way as well.
Yes.
Thank you again to both of you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for asking us to be a part of the show, and you're doing great work. as bereaved parents, we appreciate everything you do for other people too.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can text Andy's Mom to the number 53555 or visit the donate page on andysmom.com. Your donations are secure and tax deductible, and we are now able to accept Venmo, PayPal, and Apple Pay. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 organization and can receive donations through smile.amazon.com, Thrivent Financial, and Benevity, amongst others. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com. Also, be sure to sign up for the email list to receive weekly updates as well as pictures of all of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.